Hey everyone, and welcome to the video where I'm just going to be giving you the step-by-step breakdown how we have made a $100,000 game studio in the past few years, basically. How do I get to that number? Well, I was recently doing my accounting and I was very curious in our Excel of hey, how much money have we made up to this point? And it was around 86,847 euros and 97 cents. And I felt, hey, the exchange rate is pretty bad for USD right now. Let me see how much this actually is in US dollars. And turns out we've made over 100K in total revenue, which means that right now it's the point that I can start selling courses if I wanted to. Not gonna do that just yet. But I want to talk a bit more about this number and how we got there, because I feel like $100,000 starts getting pretty substantial. That's like luxury car money. I don't know, that's the first thing that I could say, because there are some caveats with all of this money, of course, and I'm going to dive into all of it. I'm going to tell you about how have we actually gotten to this point and how can you maybe learn something from us. And I think the first big caveat is that there is this graph, which is where does the money come from? A little bit over half of our total revenue only comes from Steam, which is, actual game development. That's also why I titled this video kind of different. It's about how we made money as a game studio and less about, hey, here's how we made $100,000 from selling games. There is a distinction in it, but I think I have some interesting points to talk about in that one. Where, yeah, okay, $52,844 was made through only Steam, basically. And then everything else was made through a whole variety of revenue streams. And I think that is the core important thing that I want you, like lesson one for this video that I want you to take away, is that you do not only have to make money from games that you've released, because at that point you're already setting yourself kind of up for failure. There are a lot of ways that you as a developer can make money at the end of the day that isn't just releasing games. Some common ones that you maybe know is like, hey, you have a publisher, the publisher gives you money, you're still going to be able to pay yourself wages at the end of the day using that money. Other approach that I see, especially with Belgium, is government grants, Kickstarter, work for hire. I think this is another big one that a lot of people kind of forget. You're still a game developer, even if you're like doing some freelance work. You're making like 3D assets for another project and they're paying you. In my eyes, that still counts as running a game development studio. I'm gonna toot my own horn here as well. Making videos about game development, which is what this entire channel is around, I think is still a valid approach of running a game studio. You're still working with game development, you're still delivering value in that way, and if you're being paid for it, I think that's a valid thing. Keeps going on, selling game assets, like I said. Maybe you're a talented 3D artist, but you don't have the skills, nor maybe the desire to only work on making games because you don't want to program. I think it's just as fair to just focus on mainly selling game assets, especially in the beginning of your game dev career, to kind of get stuff started, because it's way easier to make a bunch of quality assets than it is to make an entire quality game. All of these are, in my opinion, valid approaches to earning money. And I think that's something I want to say here. Game development is a really fucking tough market. You're going to be struggling to a certain degree because there is inherently less money in game development than if you're going to be making, I don't know, B2B AI applications or whatever new hotness there is going to be. I think you shouldn't let others gatekeep. We see this in our comments, we see this in other game dev YouTubers' comments, and we see this on Reddit, where people are like, oh, you're not a real game developer because you haven't made $1 million on Steam yet. And it's like, that's just wrong. And I think those people are honestly just bad influences and you should ignore them. You make money however you want to do it. Everyone has a different skill set. You are very good maybe at something that someone else isn't. Abuse that. Use that to your advantage. I'm decent at speaking on camera, so why would I not use that for myself? We kind of, if you haven't been aware of how the games industry has been over the past few years, it's been absolutely miserable. This is not the time to start completely worrying about like, oh, what if people start thinking bad stuff about me? People will always find a way to hate upon you if you're making more money or more success in general than them. Don't let these things influence you for not actually going and pursuing the things that you want to do. With that out of the way, how do you actually make money from games? Like the actual game development part, the $52,000 we've made on Steam. The answer here is honestly painfully simple, but it's something that a lot of game developers refuse to accept, and it is by simply releasing them. You just release games. I have this lineup here of all of the games we've made and where we've released them. And the core message is just keep releasing, just keep making games. So you can see we've made 5 games up to this point with very varying levels of revenue at the end of the day. $11,000 for our first game, our second game was $29,000, third game was then like kind of a very low earner, but we also only spent like a few weeks on it. There's a lot of things that you will learn throughout game development, but the best thing you can do is still release games with a certain commercial intent. And this is releasing. What you don't see also is that between Forge Industry and Unicycle Pizza Time, we have 3 more games that we ended up having to cancel. That's why there's also like almost a year or more than a year of time in between those 2 games where you are not making money from games that don't get released at the end of the day. That just really isn't the case. So releasing games is going to be your #1 way of earning revenue. And I think that is the beautiful part of game development. And you see this with other industries as well, but I think especially with game development, it is something really nice of, okay, Forge Industry has made $11,000 to this point. But that doesn't mean that that was only in a 1-month period we made $11,000 and that's it. No, I have a chart here, and this is our revenue for the month of September 2025. And as you can see, this is like 5 or 6 months after our latest game's release, and in certain games cases, like more than a year or even 2 years since that game came out, and we are still earning revenue from these games despite us not really doing any work on them anymore. Unicycle Pizza Time is still our #1 seller, making $600 to $700 a month usually, depending on like our sales and if we get like more content creator coverage and all of that. We haven't touched that game in a year basically. We haven't really made any big conscious efforts to like still push that. It has gotten that critical mass, and now the Steam algorithm is just doing its thing, and we are building up passive income, which is the dream word that I do like, because I think game development does have a real, honest to God, passive income aspect to it that a lot of developers forget about. And it is a stacking bonus. We have Overtime Anomaly, which we also released 8 months ago at this point, and it's still pulling in pretty good numbers. This is not a freak one-off month, by the way. Also, I looked at the stats for October. It's a little bit less, like 15-20% less overall earnings because we didn't participate in as many sales, but still this line stands off. All of our games are still making some revenue. And I made this graph here to kind of explain a little bit more how do game development studios make money basically. And as you can see, I have 2 axes here. One is like how much money they make, which is the vertical one. And then the other one is how much time they've been spending on their studio and like making games and all of that. And that's the horizontal one. And you'll see, like, you can put this on whatever scale you want. You can do this on like 5 years, you can do this on 2 years, whatever. You can see that until you've released your first game, you're not really going to be earning a lot of money. Maybe like here and there, oh, you sell some assets or you do some freelance work or whatever, but overall revenue is kind of low. And you're only actually going to be starting to earn money from like games for the most part by actually selling them on Steam, actually releasing them. So that's where game 1 comes in. You get your launch spike. It's not like super high because it's the first game you're making. You don't fully understand what you're doing yet, and it tapers off. But you keep developing meanwhile on the next game, game number 2, and it's suddenly going to be a lot better because you have a better understanding of how do I make games? Once again, you have your first launch spike and it goes down again. Maybe you have like a little bit of a discount or something that makes it go bump up again. And then game 3. And game 3 kind of wasn't really the perfect game maybe, but you still made some money because you need to keep in mind that this bar for game 3, it also includes game 1 and game 2 are both included in this as well. So even if game 3's launch maybe isn't an amazing success, you still have all of your previous backlog as well that is helping you kind of boost the total revenue each month. And then you just keep going. Game number 4 may be your massive hit. Maybe it's game number 6, maybe it's game number 10, whatever. You just need to keep going at it, because that brings us to the second part of this graph, and that is what happens if you take too long to release. And that is okay. We spend a long time developing our game, but we don't have enough runway. We released game number 1. Game number 1 was kind of like putting all of your eggs in one basket. And if that game didn't earn like the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you were hoping for, you're gonna run out of money and you can never reach those later stages of game number 2, game number 3, game number 4. You're gonna have to pack things up, go back to getting a real job or however you want to call it. And that is the unfortunate part. That is what I want to warn you about. This is why I talk about make small games. Don't spend 7 years on one single project, because the shorter the time is between starting game development and then game number 1 releasing, the higher the chances that you're actually going to be able to survive in the long term as well. If you'd feel like this graph isn't realistic or isn't representative, well, let me show you our Steam revenue as well from when we released our first game, basically. Now, we have the flat line here, basically. This extends for 1.5 years, basically. That is how long we worked on Forge Industry. And then here, we sold our first game, and we see that first spike. And then we have like some sales, some discounting and all of that, but it goes down, and then we have our second game. We get a bigger spike. Game number 2, Unicycle Pizza Time, really good. And then it goes down again. And then we keep, like, this was, I think, the winter sale. Then we release more games. This was game number 3, My Virtual Friend. It wasn't as good as we hoped, but it was still kind of compensated with those previous games that we've released. Game number 4, pretty good amount of revenue. Game number 5, a little bit less. Game number 6, maybe it's going to be the tallest spike we've ever seen yet, but this is what I'm talking about. This is only the second half of our game development career. We have been doing game development for 3 years at this point, and only after 18 months did we release our first game. It took us half of our studio's lifetime, basically, up to now, to actually get to the point where we had that first game released and that first game that started to earn us revenue. And I guess what I want to say here is that the first game you're going to be releasing, don't delude yourself, it's probably not going to be a massive hit and you're going to be set for life and never have to release another game again. Maybe it's game number 8 or game number 12 that will buy you the yacht, but one thing that I can guarantee you is that while you're chilling on your yacht or whatever other luxury spending that you've done, game number 1 will still be selling. Maybe not much anymore, but if it's 5 years down the line, it will still be having some level of revenue. And I just want you to understand how powerful this can be for thinking in a longer term. I talk to a lot of viewers and they're like, hey, I need to be financially stable in 4 months from now. And it's like, that's not going to happen. But if you plan for 4 years from now, that's an entirely different story because that is actually doable. But I do have to address also the elephant in the room, which is you've probably done the napkin mod already. And like, okay, Marnix, $100,000 in 3 years, you're running the studio with 3 people as well. So that's about $16,000 per person per year. That's not enough to live off. And you're correct. Like, we get comments like this very often of like, yeah, just go and flip burgers at McDonald's because you'll earn more and you'll be less stressed and whatever. And I think these commenters, they're very bad faith, I would say. You have them. If you are someone who had already written this, I will judge you. Don't go full-time immediately. Cross the flat line. I think that is something that you maybe not think about here as well. Of okay, $100,000 in 3 years, but we haven't been paying ourselves out from day one because we didn't have money to pay ourselves out. All of us started working on this while we still had stable, full-time paying jobs that we didn't have to worry that much about paying the bills and all of that. Sure, we had less hours a week to spend on game development, but overall it gave us that safety net to bridge that flat line between when you start game development and when you release that first game. Only once you've released maybe 1, 2, or 3 games where you have a better idea of how much can my games make, how much success and confidence do I have in running a game studio, that is the point where you should start considering, hey, maybe I want to also take that bridge and go full time. And something else here that I think a lot of people who make that flipping burger statement forget is like, okay, maybe you would have made more money, but I get to chill at my home. I don't have to commute. I don't have to worry about like a lot of like corporate politics or whatever. I get to just make games with my friends from wherever I want. I can take a day off whenever I want. Those are benefits that you don't have when you're working at a fast food chain or when you're doing any other job. And I think those have, for me, a lot of value now as well, where sure, I'm not buying a Lamborghini anytime soon, but I don't know if I am able to go back to regular corporate life and just say no to all of the other freedom that I've had so far. So what about YouTube? This is something that I also want to talk about. I want to talk about the other ways that we've made money. YouTube is one of the main ones. So as you know, we've made over 500 videos at this point. We're nearly at 50,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed yet, can you do me a favor and head down below and subscribe as well? Because I think you will enjoy the content we upload on here. We've made a bunch of different videos. So we've made some tutorials. We've made videos talking about like small games, for example. We've done tier lists. I've just been sharing the journey of game development for us and our studio for the past 3 years. You can go back to our very first video, which is like basically day one when we started game development, and you can see the evolution that we've done. That's kind of what this YouTube channel is about, and then sharing those things that I've learned along the way. We've made 5.4 million views and 10,000 euros in YouTube AdSense revenue. There's other ways we earn money from YouTube, like for example sponsorships. I'm not going to dive deep into that because I think for the most part you shouldn't do YouTube. I have a very quick pro and con list. This is not going to be like a very deep video about like should you do YouTube, yes or no, for game devs, or how should you do it. If that's something that you're interested in, leave a comment down below and maybe I'll tackle that in the future. But generally my advice is don't do game dev YouTube. Even though you may be like, hey, there's a lot of pros. Like I think one of the biggest pros of game dev YouTube is that you don't have to be successful. Once again, going back to when we started 3 years ago, it's about sharing the journey. And that's how we started as well. For a lot of people who are watching this video, we are still not successful. And that's your opinion. That's perfectly fine. I honestly don't even completely disagree with you. I still think we are missing that like big, massive success milestone in our game dev career, basically. But that doesn't matter. People will still be interested in you, in your journey. It's very personality driven and all of that. I think it can still be very interesting. Content has a very high amount of leverage as well. Kind of going back to that passive income thing, maybe I work for 1 hour or however long, like 4 hours on making a video, and it can be viewed by 100,000 people individually. That's a return on investment that a lot of other vessels don't have. Now, how you monetize this or what you do with it, that's up to you and the kind of channel that you're making, but it's still something that is really good about the whole creator economy thing. Something else that I have noticed is that having like, you notice this once you start having like 10,000 subscribers, you're kind of famous, not really, but people kind of know you, or you have enough social clout to make certain doors open. I've been able to talk to publishers and other people in the industry, mainly by just leading with, hey, I have 50,000 subscribers. I want to talk to you about something, just a casual chat, because you're kind of, you know, you're something. And the number, it's kind of meaningless at the end of the day, but when someone hears like, oh, 10,000 followers, okay, this guy probably knows what he's doing, or he has some sort of an idea what's going on. Let me talk more about them. Maybe there's something mutual in here. It's another benefit. It is always, you know, better to have your face out there and people can recognize you. I like it when I go to events because I get to kind of get a look behind the scenes then, because people come to me like big established people and like, hey, I've seen your videos. I love you. Let's talk, let's just hang out, whatever. And then the last pro is that I have positively influenced a lot of other game developers. And that's just kind of, you know, there's no money value on that to a certain degree, but it's still fun and nice to see. Like I said, when I go to events, people come up to me and they're like, hey, I really love your stuff. It helped me a lot because of you partially. I am here at Gamescom or whatever. And that is just fun stuff to see. Now, why you shouldn't do it? Well, it takes a really long time to grow a YouTube channel. It took us 15 months to get to 1,000 subscribers. That is with like 2 videos every week. That's something that a lot of developers and a lot of, well, people aren't really capable of. You kind of need to be built different like me. I don't know. It needs to be something that you want to enjoy doing, basically, YouTube. If it's not something that you want to do for the love of the game and just for yourself to begin with, then it's probably not something that I encourage you to like full-time pursue. If you have to ask the question, should I start a game dev YouTube channel? I kind of know that the answer for you is going to be no, because if this was really something for you, you would have started one anyway, because you would have just been interested in how it is, and it's a very low barrier of starting. Also, another con, probably the comments will be filled with these kinds of people. People will irrationally hate you. I've had a lot of, honestly, stupid amount of hate for seemingly stupid reasons. The fact that we released Unicycle Pizza Time gave us so much hate because we were supposedly breaking down Steam and becoming part of the slot problem. I get that. Or it's other stuff like, hey, people feel like I'm not qualified to talk about things, so I should just shut up and delete this entire YouTube channel. Those are things that, you know, once again, you have to be able to deal with, because let me tell you, when I found out that 4chan absolutely hates my guts and calls me all levels of slurs on there, I was very sad about that. And I was like, you know, should I keep going? And for some people, I feel like they would have thrown in the towel. For me, I was like, okay, fuck it, we're going to keep going. And I think it did pay off. Another thing, game dev, especially game development in YouTube, not like YouTube in general, is extremely, extremely hard to monetize. Because, I'm going to be honest, game developers do not have a lot of money. AdSense, sponsorships are very limited, and I think that leads to kind of the most important thing that, you know, you do hear often of like the YouTube audience is almost completely different than your actual game audience. Maybe you have like a 5 to 10% overlap of people who watch your YouTube content and who are also interested in the games that you make, but you shouldn't start YouTube channels with the sole purpose of, hey, I'm going to use this to market my games, because it's just not going to be worth it. There's whole things like horrible conversion rates for wish lists and all of that. I'm just gonna ignore that for now, but that is something I want to talk about. Another way that we make money ourselves is Patreon. I'm not gonna dive in too deep to this. Basically, we upload one extra video every week on Patreon where we just go like more in depth. We're now earning $1,400. Like, it's a little bit less, I think, at this point, per month on Patreon. Like, you can see the graph here of how much we've been working on. Generally, you should not be making a Patreon, except if you're making 18+ games. Or kind of, you know, there's a little asterisk here, or in a game dev adjacent industry such as asset creation, game design, analysis. Like, you know, if you look at, for example, K-Kit or a lot of 3D artists, for example, they have a Patreon where you can get like bonus assets and whatever. If you're more of game dev adjacent, it can work. If you're doing 18+ games, it can work. But the sock pop approach is what I call it, where, you know, people first fund the full-on game development studio. It is a concept that just doesn't work in 2025 anymore. And I would just tell you, don't worry about a Patreon. It's way more load than you probably want or can deal with. Just focus on making games instead. It's something that, once again, took us multiple years to build up. It can seem like very nice, $1,400. Honestly, for the amount of work we've put into it, I don't even think it's that much, to be honest with you. If you're interested in it, there's a link down below to Patreon if you want to check it out and you want to just get some way more in-depth, like, financial information, for example, about how we run our studio, or just talk about more advanced parts of game development, like discounting and all of that. So what about the rest? Going back to that slide of like, hey, there's a lot of ways you can make money. We've sold some assets on itch.io. Total revenue is not high. Like, it's not just itch, also like Fab and the Unity asset store. This was just an easy screenshot. We've gotten some government grants. We've gotten 9,000 euros from Flanders Investment and Trade, which is a Belgian government grant. We've gotten money from things like Twitch live streaming of our game development. There's a lot of other revenue streams like coaching and all of those. I'm not going to dive into all of them. Basically, once again, do what you can to make the studio stay alive. I have a responsibility at the end of the day, not just to myself, but also to the other people in our studio, that they can eat at the end of the day. And that is something that, sure, I would love to make more money from only selling games, but that is something that realistically isn't possible at the stage that our studio is at today. Maybe it's going to change the next 4 months. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it is something that I want you to keep in mind. Also, once again, to just be open and transparent with you, this is a graph of our income and expenses for the past 2 years, basically. And once again, you can see that when we first started, like after we had sold our game for the first time, we were making like a few $1,000s a month, like 1,000, 2,000 euros every month. But we also had a decent amount of expenses, and we were very often kind of negative in those first 6 months. And overall, when we zoom out, we can definitely see, hey, we are earning more, which is very solid, but there is still a long way to go. We are nowhere near our hockey stick yet, where suddenly we're going to get a spike and we're going to make like 20K in a month, even though that's what every influencer talks about. We just have to keep going at it the way we're doing now. It takes time. And I just want to say that as well, in a time where everyone is selling you courses about how to become a multi-million-dollar game developer in just 1 month or whatever, it's also something that just needs effort, and effort will always outpace just trying to find the quick hacks. That leads us to the future. How are we going to turn Bite Me Games from a $100,000 to a $1 million game development studio? That's my goal, and it all comes back to the secret of game development. Just make good games. This is a graph I made from a previous video where you can overthink all these things, like, you know, doing infinite prototyping, market validation, game feel, and all of that, when it just comes down to making good games and selling those good games on Steam and marketing them, and just keep releasing. That's kind of also in the vein of how are we going to get to $1 million? Just keep releasing. This is our content schedule right now for 2026 so far, where we're planning 4 more releases, and with basically every release, I am more confident of like, hey, these can be the games that are going to massively outsell all of the games we've made before. And even if they don't massively outsell, once again, going back to that like passive income graph, even if they are all middling performers compared to what we have now. So like, let's say Kyoto Anomaly and Overtime Anomaly style performance, where we're still earning $500, $600 per game per month. Well, if there's suddenly 4 extra games, that is a massive spike already of like $2,500 a month almost in recurring revenue. And that's just the baseline. That is assuming that we haven't improved, we haven't thought more about marketing the games and all of that. I think we can do way better even than all the games we've released before. So if you're interested in that, just keep following this YouTube channel, and we'll probably talk more about like these games, the reasoning behind why we wanted to make them and why we think there is going to be a success, or maybe not, in the coming future. So to end up this video, I just want to remind you of a simple thing. If me, a 25-year-old, with no formal skills, no innate talent, guys, you've seen our games, we have no art skills, whatever, can still make $100,000 game dev studio, chances are that you probably can as well. Like, we have no secret talents, basically. We just keep working at it. That's the only thing. We just don't give up. We spent years on it. That's what I have here as well. Just don't give up. We spent years on making games, and just learning stuff, learning for ourselves. Would there have been better ways to do this? Maybe. If we were good artists or if we were better programmers, we could have maybe done more. I think we're okay programmers. We're horrible artists. We're okay marketing people at this point. I'm not really sure about that, honestly. We still have a long way to go and a long way to learn. I think we're like a 4 out of 10 game development studio right now. I'm being genuine with you here. I don't kid myself. And if we can still, you know, get to this point, I think that is just hopium for you that, hey, if these idiots can do it, then I can maybe do it as well. I just need to not give up after 3 months of not seeing any results. And I think this video is kind of, I want to make it a bit more grounded. I think that's kind of what this channel stands for. So I hope it was an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts down below. How much have you made from game development so far? And do you think there is something that I've missed in this video? How do you think about our approach for making $1 million studio? Is there something else than just making games? I don't think so. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be keeping you posted along the way. So thank you very much for watching. If you're new here, we upload videos once every week. So if that's something you're interested in, like I said, go ahead down below and subscribe and you'll be notified the moment that we upload them. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.